Welcome to step one in the presentation of results from the Canadian version of this survey. There's much that stands behind this presentation. This is your introduction, hopefully an easy on the eyes introduction before you start digging into the great detail of data and the interpretive analysis of findings. Welcome aboard. Our sample size of Canadian students at independent schools was 4,481, representing 1 in every 5 students at independent schools in these grades. Provides for a fantastic confidence level in projecting these results to all independent school high schoolers in Canada. The breakdown by grade of enrollment provides us with an excellent opportunity for making comparisons across the grades. Similarly, we prepared a full set of graphs crossing every answer in the survey by tenure with the school. Asked to indicate the gender with which they most identify, there's a skew in the response group in favor of male respondents at 55%. Comparison was made between male and female respondents, and a full set of graphs crossed by all answers to this question, noting the relatively small cell sizes for other and prefer not to answer. 406 respondents reported that they identify as members of the LGBTQ2S+ community. 281 respondents indicated that they prefer not to answer this question, and additionally, 526 did not respond to this question in any way at all. A full set of graphs was prepared comparing 41 other answers crossed by racial and cultural identity. When I make these presentations, typically, I would say at this point, be very, very careful in your review of these graphs because of very small cell sizes. You can see some of these are as small as 1%. Noting the overall sample size in the survey, only one of these has less than 100 respondents. That said, some caution should be applied in the review of the appended graphs. A full set of graphs was prepared comparing all answers in the survey crossed by time spent on homework. I'd suggest that you pay particular attention to those graphs, some of which you're going to see a little bit later in this presentation. We asked students how much time they spend each day on social media. Their answers are frightening. As you can see here, they spend a lot of time on social media. They're even more frightening when we cross-tab them with other questions in the survey, and you're going to see some of that a little bit later in this presentation. 34% of students indicated that they receive outside tutoring support other than help provided by the school. We made a comparison between this group and the counterpart. As you might expect, there's a strong racial cultural skew to their answers. This slide is very similar to one I present to schools when we do comprehensive student surveys. It is not much different at all from anything I've seen over the last several years, and it's frightening indeed when you see only 13% of students report that they sleep more than 8 hours on school nights. We're going to see some other slides a bit later in the presentation detailing distinctions across these three groupings. We asked students to indicate their level of general satisfaction with the school. You can see on the bottom left their distribution of answers from very low to very high, with a weighted average score on the 5-point scale of 3.7, 65.5% indicating 4 or 5. This question forms the hinge for a significant portion of the interpretive analysis that we've conducted, grouping the 1s, 2s, and 3s as one subgrouping, the 4s separately and the 5s separately as well, to learn what are the most important distinguishing elements crossed by reported overall satisfaction, and we're going to see a number of slides keying in on that a bit later. Aside from the general satisfaction measure, we included 30 other rating type measures in the survey on the scale from 1 to 5. 15 of them were attitudinal agreement statements. Strongly disagree is a 1, strongly agree is a 5. 3 is neither agree nor disagree. These are the first 5. I'm not going to read through them. other than to tell you that I've been using these measures in comprehensive student surveys for most of the last 25 years. Here's the next group of 5 measures in the attitudinal agreement series. I'll just give you a moment to read through them. I'll make no comments here, but I'll have plenty to say when we get to the crosstab discussion a bit later in the presentation. And here are the final 5 in the attitudinal series. The only comment I'll make here is that the 3rd and 4th measures from the top are new. We have not asked those before in our comprehensive student surveys, and they're fascinating in correlation with other survey answers, and you'll see some of that in this presentation a bit later on. Typically in our comprehensive student surveys, we ask students to rate their own preparedness across a list of 20 to 25 skills. We've trimmed that for the purpose of this community and belonging survey to a list of 15, and they're presented here in descending rank order. Here's the second set of 5 in the preparedness list. The only comment I'll make here is that ranking number 10 is coping with peer pressure. If this were a parent survey, that would probably rank 14th or 15th. Always interesting and entertaining to see the distinctions between constituent groups. And the final set of 5 in the self-reported preparedness series. Note the bottom 4 ranks: organizing time, handling stressful situation, choices that support my emotional well-being, and conducting myself with confidence. I'm going to talk about those again at a later time in this presentation. 23% of respondents report that they have personally been affected by experiences of discrimination at school. From a provided list, discrimination on the basis of race scored head and shoulders above all others. And here's the bottom of that list. We pulled a comparison by region in Canada. I'm not prepared to get into any tighter granularity on this. Let's just say the West is the 4 Western provinces and the East is the rest of Canada. Any finer detail would pose jeopardy to the anonymity of particular schools. So that's as far as we're going to go in breaking that down. A full set of graphs was prepared crossed by population, not response group, but population of these schools. And the breakdowns here were made to conveniently give us roughly even groupings. Now we're going to start looking into the crosstab results. Remembering the general satisfaction question, how would you rate your overall satisfaction? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Those who scored their overall satisfaction as a 1, 2, or a 3 numbered 1,527. The 4s numbered 2,208, and the most satisfied, scoring their overall satisfaction as a 5, number 691. Greater satisfied respondents are more likely to be in grade 9 and less likely to be in grades 11 or 12. A common, though not universal, finding: greater satisfied respondents are more likely to be male students. Those reporting lesser general satisfaction are more likely to identify as members of the LGBTQ2S+ community. Those greater satisfied in their school experience on average spend less time on social media. Definitely going to see more on that a bit later in the presentation. Likely of no surprise, those who are lesser satisfied overall are meaningfully more likely to receive tutoring from outside of school. Also of no surprise, and this is a universal finding in student surveys that I've conducted, those who report lesser overall satisfaction indicate in much greater proportion that they sleep less than 6 hours on school nights, and there's lots more to talk about on this subject as well. Comparing lesser, moderate, and most satisfied of students generally across attitudinal agreement, recall there were 15 attitudinal agreement measures: strongly agree, strongly disagree. These 5 most distinguish lesser from greater overall satisfaction and with meaningful linearity. Recall that we asked students to indicate their self-reported preparedness across a list of 15 skills. These 5 most distinguish lesser from greater overall satisfaction. Recall I mentioned from the overall results, the total response group results, 4 measures. Making choices that support my emotional well-being, handling stressful situations, organizing time effectively, and conducting myself with confidence. Those 4 not only score at the bottom of the ranked 15 skills from the overall results, they also top the list in distinguishing lesser from greater overall satisfaction with the student experience. That presents a double opportunity both to raise their scores in the overall listing and to narrow the gap between lesser and greater satisfied of students. As you would expect, those who are lesser satisfied overall are significantly more likely to indicate that they've been affected by experiences of discrimination at school. Of the 406 students who indicated that they identify as a member of the LGBTQ2S+ community, 63.5% identify as female, and a little more than 20% indicated either other or prefer not to answer. Those students who identify as members of the LGBTQ2S+ community are significantly lower in their levels of agreement with each of these 4 statements. And they appraise themselves as significantly lesser prepared for each of these skills. Members of the LGBTQ2S+ community report in twice the proportion having experienced discrimination at school. In comparing the 2 largest racial cultural identity groups, those who identified as East and Southeast Asian were significantly more likely than the white counterpart for having accessed outside tutoring support other than help provided by the school. This is only one slide, but there could be 15 or 20 more. There's so much data that stands behind this statement. I would encourage you strongly to look closely at the ranked correlation coefficient tables and the mini PowerPoint presentations that are attached. There are meaningful distinctions for each of these comparisons for you to review. I give you the same recommendation for the list of 15 self-appraised preparedness measures. Look to the ranked correlation coefficient tables and the PowerPoint presentations that are attached to them. I love this slide. This slide gives the ammunition to respond to the parent who says, I don't want my child to be involved in out-of-classroom activities at the school. I want them to get some sleep. Shows here clearly that those who report that they're enthusiastically involved in out-of-classroom activities are much less likely, half as likely in fact, to sleep less than 6 hours on school nights. Get engaged. Engagement is everything. The bonus is that those who are enthusiastically involved in out-of-classroom activities spend less time on social media each day. Those who agree with the statement, I feel a strong sense of belonging at the school, are disproportionately represented by male respondents. Those who agree with the statement, I feel capable of handling the day-to-day academic workload, are also disproportionately represented by male respondents. This is a common finding. Those who agree with the statement, I feel capable of handling the day-to-day academic workload, are disproportionately represented by East and Southeast Asian respondents. Of no surprise, those who feel capable of handling the day-to-day academic workload sleep better. Another typical finding, those who agree with the statement, "I feel emotionally safe while at school," are more likely to be male than female. Those who feel emotionally safe while at school spend less time on social media. As expected, those who feel emotionally safe are less likely to have been affected by experiences of discrimination at school. Those students who feel that they make a meaningful, positive contribution to the experience of others within the school community spend less time each day on social media. Those who feel well supported at school as they strive to meet their potential are much less likely to indicate that they've been affected by experiences of discrimination at school. Those who agree with the statement, "The school encourages a love of learning in me," are disproportionately represented by East and Southeast Asian students. Also a typical finding, those who report greater preparedness for themselves in handling stressful situations are significantly more likely to be male students. In like fashion, those students who report themselves as better prepared to make choices that support their emotional well-being are more likely to be male. A typical finding, progression through the grades brings with it more time spent on homework. Progression through the grades also brings with it greater self-appraised preparedness for assuming a leadership role. And for grade 12 students, greater self-appraised preparedness for handling stressful situations. Progression through the grades also brings with it greater self-appraised preparedness for interacting in a diverse environment, setting high expectations for myself, and thinking critically. A full set of graphs is appended, crossed by identification as a member of the LGBTQ2S+ community. Recall, we had the answer yes, no, and prefer not to answer. Notably, the yes answer is closely shadowed by the prefer not to answer response in lower ratings throughout the survey. Of interest, those who say they prefer not to answer are less likely to report discrimination based on gender identity or sexual orientation. It may be that the prefer not to answer response reflects an undeclared but existing identity with this community. More research required. As mentioned earlier, a full set of graphs was prepared, crossed by racial cultural identity. Ratings do vary significantly across the subgroupings. With caution related to some of the smaller cell sizes, please refer to the appended select graphs for details. As we saw in an earlier graph going in the opposite direction, grade 9 students spend less time on homework than those in the higher grades. A universal finding in my surveys, female respondents spend far more time on homework than male respondents. As expected, those who spend more time on homework are more likely to receive outside tutoring support. These next 5 slides display an outcome that I've seen at many other times when I've done comprehensive surveys of students. I call this a saddle effect, where we see those who spend more than 3 hours on homework offer similar ratings to those who spend less than an hour on homework. The question is why? Total speculation on my part, but I'm thinking that those who spend more time on homework, more than 3 hours, are less able to be fully engaged and hence fully satisfied because they're in part paralyzed by their volume of homework. And those who do less than 1 hour of homework, perhaps by choice, are lesser engaged at their own discretion. This same saddle effect shows in this slide, I feel that I gain meaningful positive value from being a member of the school community. I feel well supported at school as I strive to meet my potential. Fascinatingly for me, I have at least one close friend at school. And finally, self-praise preparedness for making choices that support my emotional well-being. Saddle effect. We prepared a full set of graphs crossed by the number of hours spent on social media. Those who spend more time on social media offer lower scores throughout the survey. Those who spend more time on social media are also more likely to indicate that they have been affected by experiences of discrimination at school, in particular race or gender identity. 4 slides on hours of sleep. Those students who report sleeping less than 6 hours on school nights are significantly more likely to identify as members of the LGBTQ2S+ community. Those who report sleeping less than 6 hours on school nights also report spending more time on homework. Surprise, surprise, those who sleep less than 6 hours spend more time on social media every day. Those who sleep less are more likely to report that they've been affected by experiences of discrimination at school. We applied regression analysis against a number of key measures in the survey in an effort to better understand how different measures in the survey connect to one another. The top 4 statistically significant predictors of general satisfaction, collectively explaining, that means these 4 measures explain 40% of the variability in general satisfaction, are: I feel a strong sense of belonging, I gain meaningful positive value from being a member of the community, I'm encouraged in a love of learning, and hours of sleep. Next, these 5 variables collectively explain 56.1% of the variability in the measure I feel a strong sense of belonging at the school. Central measure in this survey. I feel that I gain meaningful positive value from being a member of the school community. No surprise. I feel respected and valued at school. I feel emotionally safe while at school. I have at least one close friend at school. And I feel that I make a meaningful positive contribution to the experience of others within the school community. Next, looking at the measure, I feel respected and valued at school. These 5 other measures explain 62.9% of the variability in this measure. That is huge. I feel that I gain meaningful positive value from being a member of the school community. I feel emotionally safe while at school. I feel a strong sense of belonging at the school. I feel treated as an individual with unique needs, interests, and talents, and I feel encouraged to express my opinion. Regression 4, I feel emotionally safe while at school. These 5 variables collectively explain 55.6% of the variability in this measure. I feel a strong sense of belonging. I feel capable of handling the day-to-day academic workload, encouraged to express my opinion. I feel respected and valued, and I feel better prepared for making choices that support my emotional well-being. And the final regression analysis, 6 measures as predictors for I feel that I gain meaningful positive value from being a member of the school community. Collectively, these 6 explain 64.5% of the variability in this measure. I feel respected and valued. I make a meaningful positive contribution to the experience of others. Strong sense of belonging. I'm encouraged in a love of learning. I feel well supported at school as I strive to meet my potential. And my school experience has helped me learn to engage constructively with people holding different perspectives from my own. And now for my list of recommendations. Number one is always number one. If you don't share, nobody's going to participate next time you do a survey. Broadly share an overview of this survey's results within the community, especially with the students, also with parents and with teaching faculty. These results should inform and advance many important conversations over the coming year. How actionable this recommendation is remains to be seen, but it's one I make regularly. Advance conversation with students, parents, and teachers on the topic of attaining adequate sleep. Associations with inadequate sleep are both wide-sweeping and profoundly negative. Good luck in operationalizing this one, but take a swing at it just the same. Engage with students and families in an effort to reduce time spent on social media. From all measures in this survey, there are no positive associations, only negative. I don't often make recommendations that touch on programmatic items because it's not my area of expertise. That said, intentionally create opportunity to nurture in students curiosity, passion, and engagement. These three are key correlates to sense of belonging, time and stress management, and facing challenges with confidence. Similarly, intentionally create opportunity for students to become better decision makers. Making choices that lead to emotional well-being and time management skills should be prominent in this effort. Students who rate themselves well prepared on these fronts offer consistently stronger ratings throughout the entire survey. Study the key correlates to reported overall satisfaction in the student experience. This exploration should include attention to both workload stress and the numerous survey elements reflecting the social, emotional student experience. There's a whole section in the analysis of findings report dedicated to this study. Study the very strong positive associations between feeling respected and valued and virtually every other measure in the survey. Advance conversation on the role of discrimination experiences as they relate to, but not only to, sense of belonging and derived value from being a member of the school community. Closely review the many lower ratings coming from those who identify as members of the LGBTQ2S+ community. Review the 12 appended sets of select graphs detailing distinctions across subgroupings. Review the 22 appended PowerPoint presentations, I should say mini PowerPoint presentations, each briefly detailing ranked correlations among the 5-point rating type measures. And finally, refer to the appended best scores report, cross-tabulations, and comparative cross-tabulations, perhaps 500 pages worth of data, as points of reference. Thank you for your patience. I hope this was of value for you. Your next step in the exploration should be to read through the analysis of findings report. Have a wonderful day.